try to take this opportunity as far as I can go, and did this, it really just broke me all the way, like, all the way. Anyways, shit hard. As a kid, take the move from their parents and destroy their dream. How can you do that? How?
There's that part of me that wants to go, you entitled, selfish, lying-ass niggas. I saved you a year.
The Bishop Sycamore documentary made me so angry that I'm honestly having a hard time organizing my thoughts. At first I was gonna jump on here and recap the story again, but I honestly just got the urge to lampoon Roy Johnson. If you've seen it, hopefully you understand what I mean. Having to sit through that, like, honestly wasn't easy. It's not easy to listen to somebody you know is lying to your face, but thinking they so much smarter than you that you still gonna buy it. I watched a lot of documentaries where I feel bad for the subject. I've watched a lot of docs where I was annoyed by the subject, but this was the first time that I watched a documentary that kind of just made me want to punch somebody in the face. If you're completely unfamiliar with the Bishop Sycamore story, I've got a 40-minute video on it where I go into super detail. And now there's an HBO Max documentary, and they also did a really good job of covering the story. The super short version is, if you've never heard of this at all, this guy created a high school just to create a football team. The only problem is the school never actually existed, and the kids weren't taking classes. It was all just a scam. So like I said, bro, I've covered the story at length once before, and with a few of the things I went a little deeper than the actual documentary, but even rewatching the parts I covered gave me new information by way of putting Roy Johnson, the person, on display. Then add 3 short stories that I'll hit later in the video. You quickly realize that Roy Johnson is not a misguided dreamer. Dude's a misguided schemer, a trash individual, and that's honestly about as nicely as I could put it. In my first vid, I was somewhat empathetic towards Roy, but seeing how he really is, there's not a doubt in my mind. Bro, this dude here is an S-tier narcissist who thinks he's a good liar, but he's more of a volume scorer. He lies so much that of course he's gonna get some over. You shoot 50 shots a game, averaging 20 is not impressive. He calls himself an honest liar. He takes the truth and lies about 2 or 3 key elements within it. Those elements of course completely reframe the story, and it's always the same outcome. It wasn't Roy's fault. The worst part is how proud he seems to be of the whole thing, despite the fact that he ruined the lives of a lot of these kids. You know those people who come up with a plan that sounds reasonable at first, but a reasonable win is not big enough for them. The plan will start off with a good goal, like opening a food truck, but 10 minutes into the convo and the whole thing get ridiculous. By the time the conversation over, he go from opening a food truck to opening 4 restaurants in the city in 3 weeks. This dude really thinks he's Hannibal from the A-Team, but he probably belongs in an institution with the other famous Hannibal. After watching, I found an article in USA Today where the directors of the doc were interviewed about it. I found the quote to be pretty interesting because I noticed it when I was watching, and from a filmmaking standpoint, the way they opened it was perfect. Here's the quote: "In the beginning, we allow him to treat you, the viewer, in the same way that he treats all of his subjects, all of the people that he's attempting to con, by making you think he has all the best intentions. He's a good person." And then the threads get pulled and it unravels and you see exactly who he is. You see what he is and you see what he's done. But even after you see the truth, he keeps trying to convince you. Right at the beginning, Roy admits that he was told it would take 2 or 3 years to get the school started right. For a goal as big as starting a school, a reasonable person wouldn't expect nothing less than a few years as the initial time investment. You start in a school, not a YouTube channel. This ain't something you can just kick off by the end of next week. But he rushes through the process trying to fast track recognition, and so the school's built on a shaky foundation from the start. But of course, later on when the house starts to collapse, dude starts playing victim, saying stuff like life happened. Bro, life didn't happen. You fucking happened. You was the problem, literally from the jump. Imagine driving your car onto the interstate, putting the blindfold on and mashing the gas all the way to the floor. Then when you crash, if you survive, you jump out the car and say, well, I guess life happened. There was a million different ways that you could have gone about this. You went about it the dumbest way possible. Life didn't happen to you. you happen to yourself. If you can't see your fault in that, then there's probably no help for you. It's pretty clear in the doc by his own words and demeanor. He was never in it for the kids. He was in it for the fame or the money or his ego. And those things will play some part in any decision that you make. But if you don't balance out that ego, bro, you turn into a monster.
Because you didn't have a college to go to anyway.
Alright man, real quick before we jump back in, a quick word from today's sponsor, SeatGeek. SeatGeek is the top rated ticketing app. It's been downloaded over 28 million times. They got upwards of over 70,000 events to choose from per day, and that includes tickets to see your favorite NFL team. So if you're shopping for NFL tickets this season, SeatGeek offers great deals and is super easy to use. Green dots indicate a good deal, red dots mean bad, so just keep that in mind and choose your tickets accordingly. But there's no pressure because every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee, and they're the only site that allows you to return tickets using a feature called swaps. So use my promo code FlemLo at checkout and get $20 off your first order at SeatGeek. Again, that's code FlemLo. Use it at checkout for $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. Shout out to SeatGeek once again for sponsoring today's video. Without further ado, it's time to jump back in. But if you don't balance out that ego, bro, you turn into a monster.
Because you didn't have a college to go to anyway.
He's the type that is extremely dangerous, as it appears he'll do anything to get you to look at him. He's addicted to attention, and whether consciously or subconsciously, he constantly tells you this throughout the doc. In today's world, attention means power, it's currency, and people are doing whatever it takes to get their little share. He says he did it to feel good, but it seems he wants to feel important. But to be fair to the dude, he definitely has some underlying issues. He states multiple times that he's really insecure, and I could see that. That's why I think he mostly did this to feed his ego. Some of the most insecure men in the world are some of the highest achievers. You can use that as a weapon, but you have to aim it straight. If you don't know how to wield it, you end up with this random undiscriminated damage that's just left in your wake. He even talks about how he went to therapy but didn't finish the sessions, and bro, there's no shame. You need to get back on that couch. I can empathize with that, bro. Like, I really can. But when you drag kids into it, like, that's when you start to lose me. No matter how many issues you might have, unless you need to be in an institution, you're still a grown man. Leave the kids out of your bullshit. You knew you wasn't stable enough to be responsible for these kids, but you ain't care about that. You seem to think that this is just a game. And your life can be a game if that's how you want to look at it. But just be a solo player. Leave the multiplayer alone. Further proof for the fact that he was just in it for the attention and the things that come with that, whether that be money or power. He's on the doc saying stuff like, if we on ESPN, we win. Even if the team lose by 70, we win. If all the kids get hurt because we played 2 days before, who cares? We win. We have no trainers to attend to your torn ACL, but we win. Because people are talking about it, and that's all that matters, which tells you that attention was the priority from the beginning. In the doc, he's going on about how he's done nothing wrong, and his logic is because he's done nothing illegal. There's no law that says you can't schedule 2 full contact football games within 48 hours of each other for some high school kids. How can it be bad if there's no laws against it? I had to listen to this busted logic for an hour and a half. It comes down to a question. Do lawmakers have to baby us to the point where there's a law for every single little thing? Things that should be weeded out due to simple common sense? Or are we smart enough to say, you know what, bro, that's stupid. I'm not gonna do that thing. Because it's really dumb, it's irresponsible, it's dangerous, it's not the thing to do? Or do the lawmakers need to hold our hands just to keep everybody from running into traffic? You know how young kids like walk or crawl around the house? You gotta keep them from sticking their hand into the fire on the stove, keep them away from the outlets, literally baby them, because they're actually babies. Well, at a certain age, you think a human becomes smart enough to not stick their hand into the flame over the stove? By Roy Johnson's logic, since there's no laws against it, he don't have the capacity to know he shouldn't do it. Of course he knows that, bro. I'm just making a point. If you one of them people that find yourself saying it's not against the law all the time, like, take just a second to look in the mirror. Can you honestly say, without deflecting, without saying, hey, what about them over there? Without getting defensive, can you honestly say that you feel good about what it is you're doing? Are we so separated from what's right and what's wrong that only a law can keep us all from just acting like scumbags? And I know sometimes a lot of things will fall in a gray area, but there's no part of me that believes that Roy Johnson thought playing 2 games in 48 hours was beneficial for them kids. I don't believe it. You can't convince me.
Do I look like a con artist?
That's this phrase they used to use back when I was growing up. don't get high on your own supply. I just seen it like in movies, but basically it was a message to drug dealers to not become addicted to the substances they sold. Roy Johnson's substance that he sells is lies. I feel kind of bad saying it, but he openly admits it throughout the doc. So Roy's getting high on a supply of his own lies. He's a con man who's conned himself into believing his own BS. Dude constantly acts like the victim throughout the whole doc, spitting half-truths and broken logic that he seems to really believe. The dude's so delusional to the point where he's unhinged. He's living in a fabricated world where nobody else matters. I usually don't like making vids when I'm still kind of angry, but it really pisses me off when people take advantage of kids. Then they turn around and pretend like they some kind of hero. It reminds me of two figures, a pimp and a predator. For real, bro, it feels psychologically the same. So dude seeks out kids that are down on their luck, didn't have a lot of options, and then he sold them a dream. Then the dream, of course, turns out to be a nightmare, and then he defaults into the standard pimp mindset. When I met you, you had nothing. You was out there on the street. I gave you an opportunity. I gave you a purpose. I know I lied about 99% of everything I ever told you, but the little bit you do have, you owe it all to me. Think I'm playing, bro. He basically says this verbatim towards the end of the doc, man. It's really damn disturbing. You know what sent him into the tirade? The simple fact that the kids that he hurt were actually hurt. He's like, how dare you feel pain from the hurt that I inflicted? Oh, it hurt? I'm so mad. So the dude's showing a video of the kids, right? And they hurt and they embarrassed. They the butt of all jokes. Not only that, but they've wasted their last chance, bro. They gave that to you and you took it knowing you couldn't do nothing with it. The last chance to play is gone. Their reputations are destroyed. And after all the stuff you promised, they walked away with nothing. Some of them actually walked away with less than what they came with because he put hotel rooms and loans under some of the kids' names. So not only did you lose a year of eligibility, not only did you get no credits towards any classes, not only are you now not eligible to go to college, but you also walk away with some shiny ass debt. This man even tricked these kids into filling out PPP loans to pay him this amount for a school that didn't exist. Only thing they learned was how to steal food out of Walmart, because most nights that's the only way they could get anything to eat. So as they start talking about it and just unpacking everything, naturally, as you expect, some of them start to get emotional. One of the kids broke down crying, and I could tell he was fighting it so hard, but you know, he been through a lot and it came out. Roy Johnson watched that footage of that kid pouring his damn heart out over what he did, and immediately, bro, he shows no remorse. He shows no empathy. The only emotion he seems capable of is what? Anger. Dude goes on a tirade about how stupid and ungrateful the kids are for everything he did for them. He looked that kid into his eyes and blamed him for the collapse of a fake school that he built on a busted foundation. At that moment, like, I really wanted to jump through the TV, dog. I couldn't believe it, bro. The dude showed zero remorse. His lack of remorse, lack of empathy, and all this psychopathic behavior is made even clearer by 3 specific stories. Which one do I want to start with? Let's start with the geese. So one day, Roy and a couple of the kids on the team are, riding in the car. They're riding in the car, sun's coming up, it's just a regular day. So they're riding down the street, and at one point they come across a group of 5 geese. I don't know if they just grazing or if they're crossing the street, but a detail later in the story lets you know there's no traffic on this road. According to one of the players, Roy sees the geese. What does he do? He mashes on the gas. He runs over the geese going full damn speed. Then he looks at the kids so he can give them a message. He says, I gotta show you what it's like to go to war, because there's nothing like the smell of fresh blood in the morning. But in this twisted mind, he thinking, oh, they ain't getting the message. So you know what Roy does? He slams on the brakes. This dude in that moment with his players in the car, put the car in reverse and speeds backwards. He hits the geese again just to finish the job, because apparently he's at war with some random ass birds. Let me read you a short excerpt from the Washington Post. Mind you, this was published in 2019. It says the FBI has identified cruelty to animals as a sign of psychopathy, and the example that they use is nearly identical. They use a real life example of a guy confirmed to be psycho. The dude lured some seagulls into an empty parking lot by placing down popcorn so they'd follow the trail. Once they get to the parking lot, he runs over the birds. Why, you ask? Just because. The same damn reason Roy did it. Now earlier when I said that Roy had gone to therapy but didn't finish, the reason he was there was for domestic abuse. So I think that adds a big level of credence to the next story, as you can look at his record and see he's got a history of this stuff. One of the kids said he overheard Roy arguing with his girl on a weekly basis. And okay, whatever, the couples argue. But the kid says the second week he was there, he hears the arguing and looks up and sees Roy slapping his girl. According to the kid, Roy then says, quote, "You stupid B, look what you made me do in front of my players." Again with the victim stuff. This dude can literally smack somebody, but it's always your fault that Roy slapped you. It's always your fault that Roy recruited you. It's always your fault that Roy didn't pay you. He takes no accountability in any of these situations and just continues to be a scumbag who's in complete denial. But it gets worse, because when he gets in the car again with some of the kids, he's laughing about the fact of what he just did to his girl, bragging about it, saying stuff like, "Man, look what I had to do to her. Look what she made me do. You see what she made me do?" If I had a friend who came to me and told me that, I'd look him in his face and tell him he was acting like a bitch. Bro, you need to man up and deal with your emotions like an adult. And if she ain't no good for you, bro, just leave her alone. But you out here throwing tantrums like a damn man child. That's clown behavior, and it always will be. The third story before I go ahead and end this video involves Roy beating a homeless dude with a belt. He says the homeless dude was stealing stuff out of his car. In front of the team, he starts beating the homeless dude. It's not enough to get his stuff back if the guy even really took anything. The fact that he lies so much just makes me real skeptical. If I'm detangling the web that was left by the honest liar, the homeless dude was probably just standing near his car. Roy says he might have accidentally hit him in the face a couple times, and in the doc, he thinks the whole thing is hilarious. The parents gonna lose their mind on this. He then gets the kids to join in with him, and they jump the homeless man in the parking lot. At least one of the kids did not join in. He said he sat there in disbelief. He couldn't believe what his coach was doing. So that kid called his mom the exact same night and was adamant that, "Bro, I have to come home." And sadly, bro, the whole ordeal really messed that kid up psychologically. It traumatized the hell out of that kid. So his mom says that she has several other kids and they all off to college or just out living life. But this son's anxiety and distrust is so high that he barely leaves the house. It messed him up that bad. And bro, several of the kids talk about the depression that they suffered in the past tense, but they're probably still dealing with it. Life is about dreams, you know, the pursuit of happiness. And nothing's more heartbreaking than an adult taking that away from a kid. The happiness they all felt when they thought they was joining this big program was turned on its head when they realized this wasn't what they was promised. And there's so much to sift through when it comes to this story that you kind of miss the fact that they kept fighting through it. They said this ain't what was promised to us, but we want to play so bad and prove that we're good enough that we'll put up with it all. We'll eat scraps, steal our meals, we'll even share our helmets. Whatever it takes, we'll fight through it and we'll tell the story later. Can we talk about the heart it takes, bro, to even take the field versus IMG Academy, the best school in the nation? When you still ain't recovered, you got bumps and bruises from the game that you played 48 hours ago. They should have obviously never been put in that position by the coach who was supposed to have their best interest at heart. But from their standpoint, they fought, bro, and they gave what they could. And they really just wanted a chance to prove that they could play. That's all most of us want, or wanted in our playing days. A fair shake, an opportunity to see if we could measure up, to chase that dream, and if we never catch up to it, we generally get closure, then we can move on to something else. But the lack of closure, that's deeply painful, and it makes you ask what if over and over and over. Bro, that right there can drive you into a really dark place. So I don't know, bro. I just feel bad for him, man. See, when kids are involved, bro, I get really pissed. And when it's a coach or guardian doing it, I get even more angry. Because the coach is supposed to be the person that the kid could trust. But you got him stealing out of Walmart, jumping on homeless people. The fact that you got him living like this is such a betrayal. Then on top of that, to feel zero empathy or remorse. That's what made me so mad. Like, not only did you mess over him, you gonna sit there and act like you some kind of hero. Throughout the doc, they show examples of how dude just schemed his way through the whole thing. He put more effort into scheming than it would have took to do it right. He's got over 30 pending lawsuits that they pointed out in the doc, and I'd imagine a couple of more have stacked up since the documentary came out. What's messed up is this is gonna make it way damn harder for people trying to do it right, especially people that look like Roy. So that's kind of my thoughts. I mean, I just finished watching it, and while it pissed me off, let me say it was well made. And I'd say, yeah, check it out, bro, if you haven't seen it yet. And if you have, let me know what you thought in the comment section. If you want to see a video about a coach actually doing this thing right, I actually dropped a video on Coach Prime earlier this week. You can just click right here on the screen and it'll take you right to it. And I'll see you over there, man. Catch you in the next one.